Welcome back to Campus Countdown. I'm your host, Emily Sturge, and today we'll be discussing millions of Americans were mistakenly told that they were approved for student loan debt forgiveness. A study shows that conservative women are happier than liberal women, and a Stanford professor argues that gender identity is becoming more mainstream thanks to gender clinics. We will be covering these three stories and more on today's episode of Campus Countdown. In our third story this week, 9 million Americans mistakenly received an email late last month informing them that they were approved for student loan debt forgiveness. The error was made by Accenture Federal Services, a Department of Education contractor. The mistake comes at a time when 26 million people have applied for debt relief but are blocked from receiving forgiveness as the plan is tied up in the courts. Campus Reform previously reported that some judges argue the plan is unconstitutional. In late November, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans denied plaintiffs' attempts to appeal an earlier decision by Texas Judge Mark Pittman. Pittman paused the forgiveness program, charging the Biden administration with unconstitutionally exercising legislative powers vested in Congress. The Supreme Court is set to make a final decision on the law's constitutionality in February. While the case awaits a court ruling, the Biden administration extended the pause on student loan repayments, which were originally set to resume in January, but will now be extended to late June 2023. Accenture blamed the issue on human error and said they will review quality control measures to support accurate and timely communications to applicants in the student loan debt relief program. Campus Reform continues to track developments of Biden's student debt forgiveness, and updates can be found on campusreform.org. In our second story this week, a professor argues that conservative women are happier than liberal women. Here with all the details on that story is Campus Reform correspondent Courtney McLean.
A recent report by the Center for the Study of Elections and Democracy at Brigham Young University found that conservative women tend to be happier than liberal women. The finding comes from the 2022 American Family Survey, which documents shifting challenges for families in the United States. Brad Wilcox, a sociology professor at the University of Virginia and senior fellow at the Institute for Family Studies, wrote further analysis on the survey's results. According to Wilcox, conservative women enjoy a 15 percentage point advantage over liberal women in being completely satisfied with their lives. 31% of conservative women in this age group are completely satisfied with their lives versus 16% of liberal women, Wilcox said. Wilcox attributes the difference to conservative women's greater likelihood of marrying and feeling happy with their family life. Wilcox told Campus Reform that the striking thing about the survey results is the fact that the happiness gap is very large between conservative and liberal women. He explained the gap in conservative women's happiness with family life, saying that he suspects this because conservative women are more focused on family life and in part because conservative women are more religious. Wilcox concluded his argument by saying that cultural differences between the two groups of women are key to explaining ideological gaps in life satisfaction, family life, and marital status. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Courtney. In our top story this week, a Stanford professor argues that gender identity will become more mainstream thanks to gender clinics. During an online presentation, Stanford University professor of pediatrics Tandy I broke down gender identity and why it's becoming more popular in younger generations. I also serves as the medical director of the Stanford Pediatric and Adolescent Gender Clinic. The professor argued that the rapid growth of children thinking they are transgender is because of elementary schools teaching them the concept and gender clinics affirming them. She claimed that elementary school students are now more aware of certain gender terms, such as the terms transgender and non-binary. The professor pointed out that teaching children about gender terms allows them to associate with one of them. She described the experience of children by saying, "They say, this is the term that matches, and this is what I've been feeling, and now I have that terminology to be able to express it." She argued, "I think that as time goes on, gender identity is just going to be part of the mainstream of who people are." Now it's time for the woke tweet of the week. This week's tweet comes from Sarah McLaughlin, who wrote, "Anonymous Chinese students at George Washington University are speaking out about surveillance and censorship they face on campus. This is notable and people should pay attention. Even thousands of miles from home, it can be risky for students to engage in political speech." The Athena Institute responded to this tweet with further evidence. Posters placed all over George Washington University by anonymous pro-democracy Chinese students call attention to the Chinese Communist Party's on-campus repression. The big character poster calls on universities to protect their rights from CCP proxies and divest from CCP human rights abuses. That wraps up this week's edition of Campus Countdown. To read about these stories and more, visit campusreform.org. Remember to like and subscribe here on YouTube, and you can also follow us over on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Campus Reform. I'm Emily Sturge. Thanks for watching Campus Countdown.